Spring football practice is in the books in Norman. Time to look at the two-deep depth chart as we head toward August camp. We got Jason Ray on the line from Last Word on College Football. Joins us every Friday to break down the Sooners. All right, Jason, I can't wait to see your depth chart. Just want to let everyone know that this is Jason's look at all the information he gathered throughout the spring and in attending the spring game as well. And so this is how you've got it lined up for this summer.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. Nothing official. This is just my prediction, to your point, based on what I saw out of the spring, and then certainly the spring game coming into fall camp in August.
So we can start with the talented wide receiver room.
Yeah, so from a wide receiver perspective, I got, from starting at the X, I got Jaden Hazelwood. He's struggled a little bit early on in camp, and I think, he's had more of a trust issue with the knee from an ACL perspective, and then him coming into the spring game certainly made a really good catch. He looked a little slow, so I think it's going to be a big summer for him just to be able to get back up to the speed that he was before. And then backing him up is Theo Weiss, a guy who really he was tied with Marvin Mims in terms of the amount of total catches for Oklahoma last year. So certainly a great guy, and all six of these kids will play a lot. And then the Y, Mike Woods, the transfer from Arkansas. I really just feel like even with missing the spring in Oklahoma and certainly getting up to speed in the summer at Oklahoma is going to be pivotal for him. But just the amount of experience that he has coming from Arkansas, over 60 catches and 1,000 yards over the last 2 years combined, will put him in a position specifically to be able to stretch the field for Oklahoma next year. And then Drake Stoops backing him up, certainly a guy that's very dependable. No matter who Oklahoma seems to bring in at the wide receiver position, Stoops is a guy that continues to make plays and continues to make himself known, certainly by getting that scholarship that was announced by Lincoln Riley after the game. And then, at the Z position, I have Marvin Mims, certainly one of the best freshmen in the country last year, came on really, really well, was certainly the best receiver in the group, I think, from a production perspective, and then from a backup perspective, looking there, the true freshman Mario Williams is a guy who played well in the spring, had 4 catches for 85 yards in terms of the spring game. So he's a guy that will probably back up. And you might see Riley move some of those guys. They had Mims played a little bit inside and outside in the spring. And also we saw that in the spring game as well. So you'll see those kids move around a little bit at that wide receiver position.
All right, let's head to the offensive line, which is typically one of the better units in the nation, but certainly some moving parts there.
Yeah, and this is, of all the position groups, Mark, I think this is probably a group that you may see a lot of moving parts. To your point, Beanbo likes to move those guys around a lot just to be in a position to, get the right guys there. I think through the spring, they've really liked their pieces, really just weren't able to put it together. So, starting from, really from left to right, Juani Morris is a guy that if he doesn't grab that starting spot, then I think Oklahoma's got some problems on the offensive line, specifically at the tackle position. He played well, was starting to get it a little bit towards the end of the spring. So got him there. Stacy Wilkins is a guy who did not play in the spring game, kind of some nagging injuries. I think one of the things that was really impressive about him, looking at him from the sidelines, and there was a couple of shots of him on TV, just in terms of how much bulk he's added to his frame. So he'll have an opportunity to provide some quality depth there. At the left guard, looking at both guard positions, those are probably two of the most solidified positions that they have on the offensive line. On the left side with Marquise Hayes, and then the right side, Tyreese Robinson. Marquise Hayes was a guy that Beanbo has really talked about as probably a guy that's more of a lock in terms of a starting spot than really anyone else on the team. And then Tyreese Robinson has had a really good spring as well. Did not play in the spring game, but everything that I've been told is he's been a guy that's really improved so far. Improved his body, improved his footwork and technique a little bit. And then, at the center position, really interesting. We talked a lot about Chris Murray in a lot of our discussions, Mark, you and I. We talked about he, potentially was the heir apparent. Late in spring, we kind of got some feedback that Murray from a mental perspective, he wasn't as far along as maybe we would have hoped, and the coaches thought that he would have been at this time. So they had started over the last couple of weeks of practice, specifically the last week they had moved Andrew Ram over there to get more and more time, and he took advantage of that time, played a lot in the spring game, I should say, and played fairly well. So I think he's a guy that kind of going out of spring, heading into fall, he's a guy that will be, probably that guy as of right now. Certainly there's going to be a lot of competition at that position, maybe more than any of the other ones. And then Anton Harrison he was banged up a little bit during the spring game, didn't play, and that held him out. So he's a guy, if he can get it, he solidifies that offensive line to be exactly what it is. If he's not able to, kind of make that move and be that guy, then, you might look at a guy like Eric Swinson to take that job, or you could see one of the guards kind of flip over there and maybe move Swinson in a guard.
Going to the running back position there at Oklahoma, the Sooners lose two of their top three running back in terms of productions. Ramondre Stevenson, of course, moving on after scoring 7 touchdowns. Seth McGowan just announcing this week that he's entering the transfer portal, but there is the addition of Eric Gray, of course.
No, absolutely. And I think it was pretty clear watching the spring game that Eric Gray right now is the best back that they got on campus. So I have him as the starter at the running back position. Certainly Kennedy Brooks will factor into it. Kennedy Brooks very much looked like a kid that had opted out for the 2020 season. I think it'll be a big summer for him to get back from kind of from an athletic perspective, from a speed perspective, and just from a game ready perspective, getting back. Certainly think both of those kids will play a lot with the addition of Marcus Major there, as well. Quarterback, Spencer Rattler certainly is a guy that will be the starter. Caleb Williams was incredibly impressive in the spring game. I think more than anything, it speaks volumes to the quarterback room. If Spencer Rattler happens to go down or has prolonged struggles in the offense, look for Caleb Williams to be able to come in and spell him a little bit. From a fullback perspective, you have Jeremiah Hall and Mark. If there's any group or any specific position where I think Oklahoma will look in the transfer portal now, certainly with the immediate eligibility, it might be at this position. Oklahoma does not have a lot of depth at that position. So Mikey Henderson is he's moved from a positional perspective to running back, but just in order for Oklahoma to have it too deep, you would probably look at him, maybe being in some packages and moving over to the fullback position. So wouldn't be at all surprised at either a fullback or kind of the H-back position, tight end positional area that Oklahoma looks at some depth. And certainly Austin Stogner will be the guy there. Played a little bit in the spring, still recovering from his leg issue that actually turned into an issue internally within his body in terms of an infection. So he's still coming back, and Braden Willis is providing the depth there. Certainly will play a lot as well in that backup tight end position.
And Hall's a guy that caught 18 passes last year with 5 touchdowns. And as we've discussed a number of times, Oklahoma fans, many of them looking to see more of Mikey Henderson coming up in 2021.